It's great to welcome back to the program the leader of the Democrats in the House, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. So great to have you on. I really appreciate your time.
Good afternoon. Great to be back on.
So there's many places we could start, and my audience is eager to hear from you as to essentially the plan for these next 16 months before the midterms, for the midterms themselves. Maybe just sort of to start with, can you give us an overview of the numbers are what they are in terms of who controls the Senate, who controls the House? You have tools, although they are maybe more limited than we would want them to be. Do you feel as though right now the Democratic Party in the House is using every tool that there is to combat what this administration is doing?
Yes, we're going to have to continue to unleash every single legislative tool, every single communications tool, and every single organizing tool, both to push back against Donald Trump and House Republicans who have served as nothing more than a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda, to maintain our operational close unity, which has been the case over the last 6 months. And then, of course, to be able to forcefully make the case to the American people over the next 16 months, win the hearts and minds of the American people as part of our effort to take back control of the House. We only need 3 seats to do that, and it's an urgent necessity.
Okay, good. So, given that, one of the questions I get over and over again from my audience when we speak to folks in the House or in the Senate is, if the idea is let's use every tool we have, let's be the firewall against authoritarianism, which I think I've heard you say before, and yet many Democrats still vote for nominees and bills that come from this Republican Party. Give us an explanation as to why is that strategic? Why are we helping them do anything at this point in time?
Well, I certainly can't speak to what has taken place over in the United States Senate, and uh, am unfamiliar with some of the more controversial votes, perhaps, that have taken place relative to nominations, although my sense is that many of that activity took place very early on in Trump's tenure.
Mm.
But that's a question that I think my colleagues in the Senate need to address. But what I will say is that House and Senate Democrats have been entirely united in pushing back aggressively on this one big ugly bill, which is a disaster for everyday Americans and is a big reward for Donald Trump and his billionaire donors. It will hurt millions of people who will lose their health care. Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, community-based health clinics will be unable to function, and as a result, people are going to die in every state across the union. That's why Democrats in the House forcefully pushed back and Democrats in the Senate forcefully pushed back, and not a single Democrat voted for Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. Uniform opposition. And I think that we'll see that continue in terms of how we communicate the principled opposition that we articulated to the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history, the largest transfer of wealth from everyday Americans to billionaires in American history. The whole thing is outrageous. It's deeply unpopular. And so we've had some messaging success in terms of reaching the American people, but much more needs to be done.
Okay, keep stick with the bill because this is a great opportunity maybe to better understand the strategy. One of the things I said to my audience early on when the bill went from the House to the Senate initially was, I was super honest with my audience. I said, listen, I believe this bill is going to pass. I know we're hearing from Rand Paul and Susan Collins is very concerned about elements of it, and Lisa Murkowski is worried. But what I expect to happen, because from on high down, right, from the White House on down, I believe they've decided we must pass this bill. There will be a sort of war of attrition wherein everybody will get a little something until they become vote 48 and 49. And when we get to 50, in comes JD Vance. Now, if indeed that was inevitable to a degree, one of the things I wonder about, and I want to hear about the strategy from you, is might Democrats be better off acknowledging we may not be able to stop the passage, calling the offices of Republicans, like ultimately they're going to go for it. What about trying to get some things in the bill that we can put our name to that might actually help somebody? I'm not a strategist. Is there a reason why that's not the approach?
Well, the entire approach by Donald Trump and extreme MAGA Republicans in connection with this one big ugly bill was to try to jam it down the throats of the American people and make it as extreme as possible.
Mm.
And I really don't think that there was a reasonable opportunity to actually work in a bipartisan way. We said from the beginning of this Congress that when it comes to doing things like lowering the high cost of living, making life better for the American people, rewarding hard work, and people who play by the rules and making sure that they can actually live the good life, good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement, that is what Democrats are all about and will be willing to work with anyone in good faith who's trying to achieve those objectives. But Donald Trump promised that he would lower costs. In fact, lower costs on day one. Costs haven't gone down, they've gone up. And the entire reason, David, as you know, that Donald Trump chose to pursue the budget reconciliation approach is so they don't have to work with Democrats in the House or in the Senate, could avoid the filibuster requirements in order to make this bill as partisan as necessary. The other problem is that we fundamentally disagree with Republicans about their approach to health care. We believe that in this country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, that healthcare should not just be a privilege available to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. It's a right that should be available to everyone. And that's been what we as Democrats have been all about, from initially Social Security, building upon that with Medicare and Medicaid, then the Children's Health Insurance Program in the 90s, then the Affordable Care Act, then enhancements to the Affordable Care Act that were done during the early days of the Biden administration. We are actually trying to get to a point where every single American can afford access to high quality health care. Republicans consistently have been trying to rip health care away. So that was a non-starter out of the gate in terms of our support for this toxic legislative effort.
Last question on the bill, and this will kind of get us into 2026. One of the things that I've seen floating around is if Democrats take the House in November 26 and are sworn in January 27, there is still time to stop the parts of the bill that don't go into effect until 2027. My amateur understanding is that that would need to be done through legislation that even if it passed the Senate, Donald Trump would veto as president. Is this even realistic at all, or is it sort of pie in the sky stuff that we shouldn't be thinking of? We've got to work on this a different way.
I do think it's important to draw a clear contrast between what we would do as Democrats if the American people put their trust in us, give us the gavels back, and what Republicans have done in terms of damaging everyday Americans. And one of those areas certainly has to relate to repealing the parts of the one big ugly bill that will rip away health care from the American people and rip away food and nutritional assistance from children, veterans, and seniors. And that is our commitment as Democrats to work on that. Now, it requires some partnership on the other side of the Capitol and the other side of the aisle, just a handful in the Senate in terms of what would be required. And of course, we'd actually have to convince the administration that they've made a big mistake, that Donald Trump actually said he was going to love and cherish Medicaid, but has done the exact opposite. And he's hurting his own people. Hospitals in rural America are going to close.
Yeah. So it sounds like unless Donald Trump can be convinced that this was such a bad idea that he wants to undo parts of it, it's not something that can be done without his signature.
Yeah, and in the system that we have, of course, in terms of actually reversing any legislative initiative, you will ultimately need the House, the Senate, and the president to get on the same page. But of course, we can begin to take a substantial step in that direction by taking back the House and potentially flipping the Senate, which would increase the pressure
Yes.
on Donald Trump to perhaps reverse course in part.
All right. So then let's talk about 2026. I think that whenever we speak to folks in the Democratic Party on the House side or the Senate side, the reaction from my audience is often well intentioned. I like the ideas. I don't know that there is a cohesive and coherent enough big picture, other than what Trump's doing is really bad, to turn things around in November of 26. One person jokingly said, this can't all come down to whether the top tax rate is 37 or 39%. Like, there's a bigger crisis here. There's a bigger issue that we need to contend with. And Democrats need to put together a vision that is specific, but not pedantic and sort of technocratic. So give us a sense of what are the two or three really, areas of focus other than Trump's a disaster, which he is, that you think the party needs to focus on as we get into 2026?
It's going to be important for us to really drive home a message that is authentic to who we are around the economy and building an economy that actually works for hardworking American taxpayers, addresses the high cost of living, because housing costs are too high, grocery costs are too high, utility costs are too high, childcare costs are too high, and insurance costs are way too high. America's too expensive. And, the American people have understandably had enough.
Yeah.
And we've got to seriously commit to changing that situation to ensure that people, when they are working hard and playing by the rules, actually aren't simply surviving, but they can thrive in the United States of America. To me, that's an economy that delivers a situation where everyone can afford to live the good life. 5 elements to it, in my view. 5 elements to it. Pretty simple. Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement, which means, by the way, keep your hands off Social Security and Medicare. That should not be too much to ask. Those 5 elements as part of the American dream, that when you work hard and when you play by the rules, you can achieve some measure of comfort in terms of the life that you live in the United States of America. And far too many people are struggling to achieve that life, notwithstanding the fact that they're working hard and playing by the rules. Second, we have to deal with healthcare. It's also far too expensive, and it's life-changing, life-saving, and life-sustaining, because you can have all these other things going on that we fix in society, but if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And clearly, there's a different vision between who we are as Democrats and Republicans, literally ripping healthcare away from millions of Americans, largest assault on healthcare in American history. We have a different vision of how to get to a place where we can actually achieve universal healthcare coverage for every single American. And then the third piece I think that's going to be important for us as Democrats to address is cleaning up corruption. We are seeing record corruption in this town right now. It's out of control. And we've got to deal with it decisively as it relates to the White House. They are the swamp, right? They are the swamp. But we also have to deal with it in the Supreme Court, particularly as it relates to Thomas and Alito. And we have to deal with it in Congress, which is one of the reasons why I've come out in strong support of ending congressional stock trading. Not a single member of Congress should actually be able to trade stock when you are on the public payroll. It makes no sense. We're strongly supportive of it, and it will be part of our clean up corruption agenda, I believe, as we approach the midterm elections.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about, when it comes to this Epstein fiasco that MAGA has now embroiled itself in, I've never been a big fan of the entire thing. I didn't follow it breathlessly like the current FBI director did and others, but I do see a potential opportunity to exploit the division that's building within the Republican Party. over we were told that Trump was going to be the guy to be transparent and finally tell us the truth. And now it seems as though he's either involved in or benefiting from lack of transparency. To what degree do you want Democrats getting involved in this? Or do you think strategically it's better to step aside and let them do their own thing?
Well, it's a mess over on the other side of the aisle of their own making.
Yeah.
But I think fundamentally, the American people do deserve transparency, do deserve the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the reality right now is either one of two things happen. Either Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and the MAGA extremists lied to their own people as it relates to peddling this conspiracy theory around Jeffrey Epstein. By the way, he killed himself during the Trump administration in Donald Trump's first term.
Yes.
So either they lied about the conspiracy that they've been fanning the flames of for years in order to try to boost turnout or convince people that they were righteous and the other side was somehow evil, or they actually are lying right now and covering something up, which is why they have failed to release whatever files in totality that might exist. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
They either lied or they're covering something up. And our commitment as Democrats is to make sure that we deliver the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Those efforts are being led by Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, and Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on oversight, working with many of our colleagues who were former prosecutors, some of whom were federal prosecutors, to try to get to the bottom of it all for the American people.
Yeah, they may have been right about the conspiracy, but they may have been the ones carrying it out, which is an incredible situation to find themselves in. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic minority in the House of Representatives, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Great to be with you.